The braids, the tattoos, the swagger, the crossover, the press conference, the cultural impact. Without me even saying his name, you know who I'm talking about. But for too long, we've talked about Allen Iverson through the lens of controversy, image and misunderstanding, instead of simply celebrating his greatness. Because make no mistake, Allen Iverson was great, and yet nearly 15 years after he played his last NBA game, Iverson is still having to answer for a perception he never asked for, and a reputation that was never entirely fair. But today, Allen Iverson is finally done trying to explain himself, and honestly, it's about time.
I always was basically judged from day one.
There's been a lot of talk lately about the new NBA dress code.
I don't tell nobody how to dress, man.
Everybody's not going to love Allen Iverson.
In 2015, during a sit-down interview reflecting on his life, career and legacy, Iverson said something that cut through the noise. At the age of 40, I don't think I should defend myself anymore.
At the age of 40, I don't think I should defend myself anymore. I'm done with that in my life. You know what I mean? I'm done with defending myself. I'm a villain to people that don't rock with me. I'm a superhero to the people that love me and care about me.
And in that moment, you could feel the years behind the statement. The fatigue, the frustration, the peace. This wasn't a man bitter about his legacy. It was someone who had finally stopped fighting a battle he could never win. A battle against narratives, against coded language, against an image he never asked for but was forced to carry. From the very beginning, he was never just a basketball player. He was a conversation. He was a debate. He was a lightning rod for everything the league didn't know how to handle in the late 90s and early 2000s. His resume, Hall of Fame certified, 11-time All-Star, League MVP, 4-time scoring champion, career average of 26.7 points per game, dragging a mediocre 76ers to the finals in 2001. Played through injuries most players wouldn't even practice through. But after all of that, even after all of that, there was never the full story when it came to Iverson. Because the real discussion wasn't about what he did with the ball. It was about what he wore, how he spoke, where he came from, and how he carried himself. He was scrutinized for his braids, for his tattoos, for his baggy clothes, for his music tastes, for his honesty. In other words, for just being himself. Iverson didn't just step into the NBA, he crashed through the front door. In a league trying to package its product for corporate sponsors and middle America, here came a 6-foot guard from Hampton, Virginia, who looked and moved like the neighborhoods he grew up in. He didn't look professional, he didn't speak in pre-approved sound bites, he didn't play the game, not off the court. And people had a problem with that. Iverson once said, "It's just a stereotype."
It's just a stereotype, like I said. And then with my hair and the cornrows, you know, people talked about it being a thug thing. And I had cornrows, and then they turned that into some thug thing. So, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's just an Allen Iverson thing. You know, that's all. It was just, you know, not agreeing with the fact that I wasn't going to try to look like somebody else instead of looking like myself.
Let that sink in. He wasn't rebelling. He wasn't representing. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He was the actual statement. In 2005, the NBA instituted a dress code. Players were now required to wear business casual attire when representing the league. No jerseys, no chains, no hats, no baggy jeans. It wasn't said, but it was known this was the Allen Iverson rule. The league was reacting, not to his talent, but to his image. An image they didn't know how to market. An image they feared might alienate the wrong demographics. What they didn't understand is that Iverson wasn't trying to alienate anyone. He was just trying to be real. And for millions of kids who looked like him, dressed like him, and felt unseen by the media they consumed, Allen Iverson was the first time they saw themselves in an NBA superstar. When Iverson retired, he didn't stick around for the hot takes or the highlight shows. He faded from the public eye. But not without speculation about his money, his drinking, his family. Even after retirement, Iverson couldn't escape the media's need to dramatize his life. And yet, over the years, something started to change. The league began to embrace him. You saw him courtside at All-Star games, in tributes, in documentaries, in commercials. Suddenly, the same league that once feared what he represented now celebrated him as a pioneer. It's not just ironic, it's poetic, and it's a shame that that couldn't be done while he was still playing. But for Iverson, that slow embrace doesn't mean he's forgotten the scrutiny he lived through. And more importantly, he's done trying to explain himself to the people who never wanted to understand him in the first place. There's a painful irony to Iverson's legacy, because as great as he was, MVP, scoring titles, game-winning shots, unfiltered honesty, he's still remembered more for his image than his impact. People remember practice, they remember the outfits, they remember the criticism, the rumors, but do they remember the 48-point game in the 2001 finals? Only the diehards maybe. Do they remember the way he carried a team that had no business being in the championship round? Do they remember the broken fingers, sprained ankles, and bruised ribs that never stopped him from suiting up and competing? Do they remember the way he changed absolutely everything? Because that's what Iverson did. He changed the game, but more importantly, he changed the culture. Today's NBA? From fashion tunnels to social media expression to players speaking out unapologetically, that's Iverson's legacy. That's his gift to the modern game. And you can't tell the story of the NBA without him. He was never perfect. He never claimed to be. He made mistakes, he had flaws, he was emotional, he was vulnerable. He wore his heart on his sleeve, sometimes literally. But that's exactly what made him real. In a sports world full of rehearsed answers and polished PR, Iverson was raw, he was human, and most importantly, he owned it all. So why should he be the one who has to defend himself? He's told the truth about his struggles, about his decisions, about who he was and what he wasn't. He never asked to be perfect, he just asked to be understood. And after all these years, if people still don't get that, that's on them, not him. We live in a sports culture obsessed with legacies, but we've got it all backwards. Too often, the conversation is about what someone wasn't. He wasn't efficient, he didn't win a ring, he didn't fit the system, he was too emotional, he didn't conform, and we forget to appreciate everything they were. And as for AI, he was fierce, he was loyal, he was electric, and he was himself, even when it wasn't safe to be. Even when it cost him endorsements, headlines, and favors. He was a 6-foot man who played like a 7-foot giant. He gave everything he had to the game, his body, his soul, his story. So what more do people actually want? In the end, Allen Iverson doesn't need to defend himself anymore, because his legacy speaks louder than any press conference ever could. You can talk about Jordan, you can talk about Kobe, you can talk about LeBron, but if you're telling the story of how the NBA culture has shifted, if you're talking about how the league embraced authenticity, creativity, and individuality, you have to talk about Allen Iverson. You can't leave him out. You won't leave him out, because no matter what the critics said, no matter what the headlines wrote, no matter what he didn't do, Allen Iverson will always be one of the most important, influential, and honest figures to ever touch an NBA floor. And that doesn't need defending, that just needs respect. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, because we have new content multiple times a week. I'm Damian Peters, and I'll see you in the next one.